The church was silent in a way that felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. Soft music played, slow and distant, barely touching the ears of the people seated inside. Everyone wore black, some cried quietly. Others stared straight ahead numb. At the front of the room rested a polished coffin surrounded by white flowers. A billionaire's funeral was supposed to be grand, but this one felt cold, final. Most people believed the woman inside the coffin was gone forever. Everyone, except one man. He stood near the back, wearing a faded janitor's uniform and worn shoes that had seen too many long nights. His head was lowered, not out of respect, but because his thoughts were racing. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the handle of his cleaning cart. He was not supposed to be here. He was only meant to clean the building after the service ended. But something felt wrong. This man had spent years working quietly in the shadows of powerful people. He cleaned offices bigger than his entire apartment. He wiped fingerprints off desks worth more than he would earn in a lifetime. He was invisible to most people in the room. Just another janitor, but he was also a single father. And he was someone who noticed things others ignored. Earlier that morning, while preparing the hall, he had been asked to mop near a private medical room connected to the church. As he worked, he overheard two men speaking in hushed voices. They thought no one was listening. Powerful men often made that mistake. One of them sounded nervous. The other sounded angry. "She can't wake up," the angry one said. "She won't," the nervous voice replied. The doctor said, "I don't care what he said. This ends today." Those words stayed in the janitor's mind like a sharp echo. As the funeral continued, speakers took turns praising the woman's success. They talked about her intelligence, her wealth, her strength. They called her a visionary, a legend, someone who changed industries. But no one talked about her kindness. No one talked about her fear of hospitals. No one talked about how she always asked the janitors how their children were doing. He remembered those things. He remembered how she once stayed late to help him fill out a school form for his daughter because his hands shook when he tried to write. He remembered how she never looked down on him. That was why he couldn't leave. As the priest stepped forward to begin the final prayer, the janitor's heart started pounding harder. His chest felt tight. Sweat formed on his palms. Then he noticed it. It was small. So small that no one else would have seen it. The janitor's eyes were fixed on the coffin, on the glass panel near the top. The room was cold, but there was a faint fog forming inside. Not much, just a whisper of it. His breath caught. That wasn't right. People don't breathe when they're dead. He leaned forward, blinking, hoping he was wrong. Hoping his mind wasn't playing tricks on him. But then he saw it again, a slight movement. A barely visible rise beneath the silk lining. His legs felt weak. "She's not dead," he whispered to himself. His mind raced. What if he was wrong? What if he embarrassed himself in front of powerful people? What if security dragged him out? Then he thought of his daughter. He thought of how he always told her to speak up when something felt wrong. To never stay silent just because others were louder. The priest raised his hand to signal the final blessing. That was it. If he didn't act now, it would be too late. The janitor took a step forward. No one noticed. Another step. Still no one cared. He was used to being unseen. But when he reached the center aisle, his courage finally outweighed his fear. "Stop!" The word echoed through the church like a crack of thunder. Everyone froze. Heads turned. Gasps spread through the room. The priests stared at him in shock. Security guards moved instantly. "You can't do this," someone hissed. "She's alive," the janitor said, his voice shaking but loud enough for all to hear. "She's breathing." Laughter broke out from one side of the room. Angry whispers followed. "This is a funeral," a man in an expensive suit snapped. "Remove him." The guards grabbed his arms. "Wait," the janitor shouted. "Please. Just open the coffin. If I'm wrong, I'll leave quietly. I swear." The room buzzed with tension. Cameras from the media shifted toward him. The powerful man who had spoken earlier locked eyes with the janitor, his face pale. "No," that man said sharply. "This is disrespectful." The janitor looked at him and felt something click into place. Fear. Real fear. And in that moment, the janitor knew one thing for certain. This funeral was hiding a truth that was never meant to be revealed. And he wasn't leaving until everyone saw it. The room exploded into noise. People stood up at once. Some shouted in anger. Others whispered in confusion. The guards tightened their grip on the janitor's arms, ready to drag him away. Cameras zoomed in, hungry for chaos. This was supposed to be a clean ending, not a scene. The janitor did not fight back. He didn't need to. He just kept his eyes locked on the coffin. "Look at her," he said, his voice breaking through the noise. "I've worked around death before. I know what it looks like. This isn't it." One of the guards leaned close to his ear. "You've said enough. Walk away now," the janitor swallowed. His heart felt like it was trying to escape his chest. But then he saw it again, a tiny movement, so slight it could be missed in a blink. "She moved," he said. Louder now. "She just moved," a woman near the front gasped. "I saw that too," she whispered to the man beside her. The powerful man in the front row stood up sharply. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. "This is a sick joke," he snapped. "My sister is dead. This man is looking for attention. Sister." The word hit the janitor like a punch. Everything suddenly made sense. The rushed funeral. The closed casket until the last moment. The way certain people refused to meet his eyes. The voices he overheard that morning. The janitor looked at the man again. His hands were clenched, his jaw tight. Sweat dotted his forehead. That wasn't grief. That was panic. "Then prove me wrong," the janitor said quietly. "Open it." Silence spread through the room like a wave. The priest hesitated, eyes darting between the family and the guards. He cleared his throat. Perhaps we should pause." "No," the man said sharply. "We will not." That single word raised more doubt than the janitor ever could. From the side of the room, an older woman stood slowly. Her voice trembled, but it carried weight. "If there's even a chance," she said, "don't we owe it to her to check?" Murmurs followed. The guards loosened their hold, just slightly. The janitor felt hope spark inside him, fragile but real. "Please," he said, his voice cracking now. "She was always kind to people like me. I won't let her be buried alive." That sentence changed everything. A wave of shock rolled through the room. Buried alive. The priest took a step toward the coffin. The powerful man moved just as fast, blocking his way. "No one touches it," he said. "This ends now." In that moment, the janitor stopped being afraid. Fear had been replaced by something stronger. Truth. "You're scared," the janitor said. Not loud, not accusing. Just honest. "You're not scared of me. You're scared she might wake up." The man's face hardened. "Get him out." Before the guards could act, a faint sound echoed through the room. It was soft. But it was real, a low, weak knock from inside the coffin. The room froze. Someone screamed. Another knock followed. Slower this time, weaker. There was no denying it now. The priest backed away, hands shaking. "Open it," he said. "Now." The man lunged forward. "No," but it was too late. Several people rushed the coffin together. The guards hesitated, torn between orders and horror. The janitor stood rooted in place, tears streaming down his face. They lifted the lid. Inside, the woman's skin was pale, her lips slightly blue. Her eyes fluttered weakly, struggling to open. Her chest rose unevenly as she gasped for air. She was alive. Chaos erupted. Someone called for an ambulance. Others cried openly. Cameras flashed wildly. The powerful man stumbled backward, his face drained of color. "She wasn't supposed to wake up," he whispered without thinking. The janitor heard it. So did everyone else. The woman coughed weakly, her fingers twitching. Her eyes shifted, unfocused, until they landed on one familiar face. The janitor leaned closer, tears falling freely now. "You're okay," he whispered. "You're safe." "I'm here." Her lips moved slightly. "Thank you," she breathed. Sirens wailed in the distance. As medics rushed in, the guards stepped away from the janitor. No one tried to stop him now. No one looked down on him. He had just saved a life. But as the woman was lifted onto a stretcher, the janitor knew something else. This wasn't over. Because someone had tried very hard to make sure she never woke up. And they were still standing in the room. The sound of sirens faded into the distance as the ambulance doors closed. The church, once full of whispers and grief, now felt like the center of a storm. Police officers arrived quickly. Medical staff gave short answers. Cameras were pushed back, but the damage was already done. Everyone knew this was no longer just a funeral. It was a crime scene. The janitor stood near the aisle, his legs weak, his hands still shaking. People looked at him differently now. Some with gratitude, some with shock, some with fear. A few tried to thank him, but words felt too small for what had just happened. An officer approached him gently. "Sir, we need to ask you a few questions," he nodded. He had nothing to hide. As they walked to a quiet corner, the powerful man, the woman's brother, sat stiffly in the front row. His face was blank, but his eyes were wild. He avoided looking at anyone, especially the janitor. The officer asked simple questions at first. How long he worked there, why he was at the funeral, what he saw. The janitor answered honestly. About the voices he overheard, about the fog on the glass, about the movement that didn't make sense. The officer's expression changed with every word. "You may have saved her life," the officer said quietly. The janitor shook his head. "I just paid attention." That night he went home late. His daughter was asleep on the couch, school bag beside her. He covered her with a blanket and sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. He kept thinking about the woman's eyes. How scared they looked when she woke up. How confused. Someone had done this to her. The next morning, everything changed. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. News channels replayed the moment again and again. Headlines called him a hero. Some called him a miracle. Others called him a liar looking for attention. He didn't care about any of it. He only cared about one thing. Was she okay? At the hospital, the woman slowly regained strength. Doctors discovered strong sedatives in her system, enough to make her appear dead, but not enough to stop her heart completely. Someone had carefully planned it. When detectives spoke to her, her memories came back in pieces. She remembered feeling dizzy in her office, remembered trusting someone she shouldn't have, remembered her brother's voice telling her to rest. Then darkness. When investigators questioned the brother, his story didn't line up. His phone records raised alarms. Financial documents revealed massive transfers scheduled to complete the day after her funeral. He stood to gain everything. Meanwhile, the janitor's life was being pulled into the spotlight, whether he wanted it or not. Neighbors knocked on his door. Reporters waited outside his building. His daughter asked why people were calling him brave. He didn't feel brave. He felt tired. One afternoon, the hospital called. "She wants to see you." He stood in the doorway of her hospital room, unsure if he belonged there. Machines beeped softly. Sunlight filled the room. She turned her head and smiled weakly when she saw him. "You came," she said. He nodded. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." She looked at him for a long moment. "You saved me," she said simply. He shook his head again. "You were always kind to me." "I just returned it." Her eyes filled with tears. They talked quietly. About his daughter, about how lonely power can feel, about how people often ignore those they think don't matter. "You saw me when others didn't," she said. "That's why I'm alive." Days later, the arrest happened. Police took her brother into custody. Charges followed quickly: attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. The news broke across the country. People were shocked. But the janitor wasn't. He had seen fear in that man's eyes from the start. With the truth exposed, the attention shifted fully onto him. Offers came in, interviews, money, opportunities he never imagined. He turned most of them down. What he wanted was simple: stability. One evening, as he walked his daughter home from school, she looked up at him and said, "You did the right thing, didn't you?" He smiled softly. Yes, that night a letter arrived. It was from her. Inside was a handwritten note thanking him again. And at the bottom, a promise. "I don't forget people who saved my life." He didn't know what that meant yet, but he was about to find out.